Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today is gonna be an ultra crazy episode, okay? This is gonna be one that's probably gonna really piss off a lot of people, and quite frankly, that's okay. It's just my opinion. We all have them, we should all share them. Let's do this together, okay? I'd love to hear your comments below, and if you really love this stuff, please share with your friends. Hit the subscribe button. Please hit that little bell for notifications. I'm really trying to ramp these up. I have a list of ideas written down that I'm gonna really try getting at least one or two of these a week. So today's topic, okay, here it is, everybody. Today's topic is twofold. Who is the best James Bond, and why is Daniel Craig's version of James Bond movies the best? Okay, so they don't. They're James Daniel Craig may not be the best James Bond, but I think his set of movies definitely are the best, and I'll explain that a little bit later. So who is the greatest James Bond? Okay, subjective, very subjective. To me, it'll always be Sean Connery, okay, the original. He set the standard for what James Bond is going to be. But let's go over who's been James Bond, right? Okay, so we got Sean Connery, George Lazenby, then we got Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and Daniel Craig. Boy, every one of them I think, have done an ultra great job. I think some of them really, you know, people really put down for whatever reason. I don't know. But for me, I'm going to go Sean Connery. Sean Connery is a standard bearer to what James Bond is. So to me, it's him. Okay, that's easy enough. But let's look at Lazenby. Lazenby only had one shot at James Bond, and he is still talked about today. I mean, he has legions of fans. Quite frankly, I never saw his movie growing up. To me, George Lazenby, who the f is that guy, right? Like, why do I care what he think? What about his movie? He only made one, and from what I heard, it was a flop. But about 2 years ago, I sat down and I watched it, and I loved it. I actually loved it. I thought it was different. I thought, it showed a side to him of vulnerability, right? Like James Bond was suave, he was cool. Every girl loved him and every guy wanted to be him. Well, and some guys even probably want to be with him. But he was, you know, James Bond was cool. Everybody wanted to be him, right? So Lazenby, learning more about him, not a career actor, didn't, maybe not have had the aspirations for it, but I thought he did a hell of a job playing James Bond. He showed a side to him that hadn't been seen, and quite frankly, up until Daniel Craig, hadn't been seen. So I really thought that was phenomenal. He really did a phenomenal job. Roger Moore, I mean, what can you say? I think he made like 12 James Bonds from like 70, what was it, Live and Let Die, to, I don't remember what the last one was, um, in the mid 80s there. I mean, he made like 10 of them, I want to say. Very good. What can you say? Roger Moore was just, he was good. I mean, there's not, you can't say anything bad, can't say anything, I thought he just really did a really good job. He took Connery's suaveness and allure and maybe just took the classiness up a level, right? Like James Bond with Connery still had a little edge to him, but he was still, that suave, sexy, all that stuff, but he had a little edge to him, right? But Roger Moore really had the polish to him, really that pinky out kind of a James Bond character. And I thought he did a phenomenal job. Live and Let Die is probably top five James Bond movies for me. It's just that good. And so I thought he did a phenomenal job. Obviously there's the critics that didn't like him towards the end. I thought he was a little too old, maybe was there too long. I get it. Whatever. Haters are gonna hate. People are gonna There's always going to be a critic. Then Timothy Dalton. He's probably my least favorite Bond. But when you have one A, one B, one C, one D, one E, one F, yeah, they're all good. It's just what flavor do you want? It's like Baskin Robbins. What flavor do you want? So I thought Timothy Dalton did an excellent job for what his Bond character was supposed to be. It was supposed to be edgy and rough and violent and just boom. There's no polish to him, no class to him, right? It was just boom. And I thought he did a good job in that roles. His two movies, I thought they were good. Not my personal favorite, but I thought he did a really phenomenal job. And then we come to Pierce Brosnan, right? So to me, that was my first foray into James Bond. During my lifetime, I was too young for the two Timothy Dalton movies. And so GoldenEye, right? For people my age, mid-30s, GoldenEye's kind of your standard bearer, especially with the video game. The video game really kind of took off and had its own life, and still does have its own life. But Pierce Brosnan, I thought, did a really good job. Some of his movies, his movies remind me of like all other movies, right? The downside to the Bond movies, and I'll touch on this with Daniel Craig's, is that they were individual movies. Like, you didn't need to watch the others to understand. Like, it didn't matter. Like, they all were individual movies, could have came out at any point and just moved on. And that was fine. I thought Brosnan did a phenomenal job. One of my personal favorites, as an actor in general, Pierce Brosnan's one of my favorites. So him as Bond, phenomenal choice. GoldenEye was great. And then his movies, they just kind of got that cartoony, late 90s movie run, which they're the big blockbuster, but I don't know. They just didn't. GoldenEye was just so special that I think his other movies just weren't that great, comparable. They kind of all had the same, right? And then Daniel Craig. I think his Bonds are phenomenal. They're a combo. I think Daniel Craig honestly took all of the other James Bonds and put them together. I mean, he has the Sean Connery factor, the Roger Moore factor, Lazenby factor, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan. I think he'd like combine all of their Bonds because they were all slightly different and just boom, put them right together, right? I thought Daniel Craig, from a body of work, his body of work as Bond is probably the best, right? But Connery will always be the standard bearer. He'll always be the gold standard. And then I'd probably go, boy, if I had to rank them, I'm not going to put Lazenby in there because how can you rank somebody that only done one? To me, so I don't put Lazenby in there. I think his movie was great. But you can't compare them to, Connery did, I don't remember how many he did like 6 or 7. Moore did close to 10. Dalton did 2. Brosnan did like 3 or 4. And Craig's done 5, right? So, Connery's number 1. I'd probably do Daniel Craig number 2. The hard part for me is Brosnan and Moore. So I'd probably put them 3. And then Dalton I would do as number 5. Like I said, Dalton's to me were fine. They weren't anything special. They reminded me of a typical 80s action movie, right? It wasn't a Bond movie, right? Like Bond movies had something to me. To me, this just reminded me of a Schwarzenegger action movie or a Stallone action movie that just had James Bond as the main character. There just wasn't anything to it that stood out in that regard. So to me, that's where it's hard. But Moore and Brosnan, I can't put one or the other. They both were really good in different ways. But Connery's the gold standard. Then Daniel Craig, what he's done for these last 5 movies, and I have not seen the 5th one, No Time to Die. I can't wait to see it, but I just have not had an opportunity yet to see it. But Daniel Craig's movies are the best 5 of the series, and here's why. There's a storyline arc to them, right? Like you have to watch Casino Royale, and then was a Quantum of Solace, which was not as good as Casino Royale was just so high. I think it was like the Golden Eye effect, right? So high, how do you follow it up? Quantum of Solace was a little bit of a letdown, but then was trying to think what's the next one. I'm gonna forget that name, but then you had Spectre or Skyfall, Spectre, and then No Time to Die. Can't think of the third one right now. But that series, phenomenal. You have to watch them in order. You have to get them. I think Daniel Craig, like I mentioned a minute ago, encompassed James Bond, right? All the James Bonds you had so far before him, put them all together and just made that character. It was so. It's hard to really explain. It's like you gotta watch it to understand. There's a love interest, right? So he brought in that Lazenby effect, and then just that brooding, cold, calculated character, right? Like every time he makes a step forward, boom, he gets stopped, right? So he brings the realism, right? Like you see Sean Connery, you go, that ain't real. Yeah, how do you duplicate that? That ain't real, you know. But then Daniel Craig's like, well, that's real life stuff. We all can deal with that. We can all relate to that. And so to me, that's why Daniel Craig, you know, obviously I can't go over Sean Connery being the ultimate, but I think Daniel Craig's the closest thing that can challenge Sean Connery's title, his throne for, who is James Bond. His movies are phenomenal. They are real. There's a believability behind it. It's just phenomenal. And you have to watch them in order. You have to start with Casino Royale to really understand this arching storyline, this plot that travels through it. And it's just phenomenal. I can't wait to see No Time to Die. From everything I've heard, it's phenomenal. I do know what happens at the end, which I'm not a big fan of, because that leaves very interesting what they're going to do next. And I hope they don't go the way I've been hearing. That to me is stupid, because James Bond is who James Bond is. So let's keep it that way. This whole 007 separation, I'm not a big fan of that separation. That to me is just kind of pointless. But like I said, I can't wait to see the new James Bond. As always, I love to hear your comments. If you like this, if you hate it, if you hate my voice, put that. Anything. If you love it, love for you to share with your friends. I'd love for you to like this, subscribe to it, hit the notification, share it on social medias. I'm on all of them. This is just having fun. Let's all have fun. Life's too short to critique everything. Let's just sit back and have fun. All right, everyone. Talk to you later. Bye.